It's now live.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our last meeting of this civic year of the Southern Rural Committee. I'd like to welcome members and officers to this Southern Rural Committee meeting, and welcome to everyone who possibly is watching online. Before we begin, can I invite the committee member and scrutiny officer to explain how the proceedings will work?
Thanks, Chair. Please note the meeting is being streamed live on the Council's YouTube channel. If a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on the microphone unit. Please wait for the Chair's invitation before you begin. Please can I remind you that the normal procedure rules in respect of debate and speaking times to speak will apply. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room, and the result will be visible on the YouTube stream. In the event of a tied vote, the Chair will have the casting vote. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? No, back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so to begin with, I have apologies for absence. I have apologies received from Councillor John Bishop, Councillor Lisa Nash, Councillor Terry Tyler, and Councillor David Barnard. Are there any other apologies? No, I think the rest of us are here. Okay. The minutes from October 21st of October 2021, because obviously the December meeting didn't go ahead as scheduled. I'd like to propose that we take as read and approve as a true record the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on the 21st of October 2021. Please can I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Tandy. All those in favour?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Item number 3 on your agenda, notification of other business. I don't have any other business notified. So we'll move on to item number 4, Chair's announcements. Welcome those present, particularly speakers who are here to present to us tonight. Thank you for coming along. It's good to see you, and it's great to be back in person again and see you the full face. It's lovely. I know you've got dividers, but it's as close as we can get. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under Chair's announcements on the agenda. Item number 5, another very warm welcome to Sergeant Guy Westwood. Thank you for joining us tonight. Sergeant Guy Westwood, for people who maybe aren't aware of Sergeant Westwood, is the part of the Safer Neighbourhood team. He is here to give us a verbal presentation and is very kind to join us every year just to update us on what is going on across the southern rural area. Over to you, Sergeant Westwood.
Thank you. I will go through staffing first and who's who in our world, shall we say. The Chief Inspector is John Roche. Our Inspector for Safe Neighbourhoods is James Lant, and you've got myself as the Hitchin Sergeant. I'm both Hitchin Urban and Rural. Alan Clark is still one of our sergeants, but we've had a slight restructure, and so the neighbour team is split into 3 teams now across North Herts. And so that frees Alan Clark up to do a bit more stuff behind the scenes. And so he'll be doing more liaising, setting up meetings and taking some of the other stuff away from us so that we can hopefully concentrate more on the issues that we need to be concentrating on. As my PCs, I've got PC Gary Pugsley, who's Chesfield, Kimpton and Great Ashby. I've got Claire Ross, who's Offa and Who, and I've got Claire Wallace, who's Nebworth and Codicott. And our 2 PCSOs are Stuart Stone and Heather Burrows. Gary Pugsley has had a period of sickness, several months. He's going to be coming back towards the end of this month, which will be great news. We can get ourselves back up to full strength. Heather Burrows has had an operation on her knee, and so she's not been able to be out and about for a few months, but you'll have noticed her back sort of making phone calls and back on the emails again. She is hopefully just weeks away from being able to come back out, maybe even days, and that would be a great help to as well, getting her back out and about. Our priorities, as I hope you're aware, we set them, or we used to set them every 3 months. We are trialing setting them every 6 months, so it gives us longer to be able to achieve more with each one. We will review them after 3 months again and just check that we're on target. But they will be up for sort of renewal, shall we say, 6 months time. That was from January that we set those. And so at the moment they are fly tipping, residential burglary and speeding. Fly tipping often comes up, and it for a period we kept it there almost permanently because it seems to be something that people feel very strongly about. We've got such a huge area, it's very hard to get any inroads into it. We have got some covert cameras that we are using at the moment, and we will put those out in areas where we get repeat locations. It is quite hard. It is a huge area that we're trying to concentrate on. As soon as we get any good results from those, then I'll make sure that we publicise them. We work very closely with David Furr from the council. He is the lead, if you like, on fly tipping. And so between us, I think we're doing quite well. I don't have any figures because David Furr's got most of the figures for what we deal with. But we're getting some good results. We will go out together to some of the fly tips, or if he sees something he thinks we should be made aware of, he'll report it through to us. And we will have some joint operations coming up during the year. Burglary residential, we've decided to focus on because we saw this as something that we were going to get an increase in, because we tended to around about October time. So we brought it in as a priority then, and by popular demand, shall I say, it stayed as well as one of our priorities, and it has shown an increase. But we're definitely concentrating on that. I'll tell you more about that as we get through the crime figures. And speeding is the other one, and this again is a popular choice. I don't think there's an area of North Herts, or should I say Hertfordshire, that people don't think that speeding is a potential issue. And that's certainly the same in our rural villages. As we start getting more and more people back on the roads, going back to work, people will once again be looking for shortcuts, and that's going to be through little villages with people trying to make up times. So we're concentrating on that as well. And we're setting up a rota of areas. I'm trying to get a road in each of our areas as a start, that we can then do a rota between the team to go and pay some attention to it with doing speed work. We've got the PCC's camera van as well that we can utilise. The hard part with that is that they have quite strict health and safety rules they've got to follow. And some of the roads we're trying to get them to come out on are too narrow for them to be able to utilise. But we're working around it, and we're going to hopefully be able to give some results at the next update for the operations that we're doing. That brings us on to crime figures. And everything that I've looked at is from the 1st of April last year to present day, compared with the same period the year before. So it's almost a full year now. We would have expected all crime to increase with the change from everyone being in lockdown and at home all the time to everyone being out and about, businesses open again. And sure enough, for Hertfordshire, there has been an increase in crime of 4.3%. So it went up from 65,570 crimes last period to 68,357 crimes this period. North Herts in general has bucked the trend, and we've shown a 1.5% decrease. All crime recorded this period being 5,579 crimes, and last year 5,665 crimes. We're one of only two CSPs to show a decrease. I think Broxbourne was the other one, and there's 10 CSPs, so we're quite pleased with that. Hitchin Rural has more than reflected this, with a 13% decrease in all crime. There were 774 crimes this year compared to 890 last year. So the decreases for Hitchin Rural, we've shown a 19% decrease in arson and criminal damage, 35.8% decrease in public order offences, 33.6% decrease in theft, 37.3% decrease in vehicle offences, a 50% decrease in theft from motor vehicle, 60% decrease in business burglaries, 50% decrease in racially aggravated crimes. These sound all very strong figures. There were only 2 racially aggravated crimes this year, so the 50% decrease is still good, and that's certainly the direction we want it to go in, but it's not like we're getting huge numbers for any of these anyway. Shoplifting, 57% decrease as well. We're really pleased with all of those, and we're not going to be complacent. We're going to keep working to keep them that way. Areas that we need to maybe show some more work, we've got an increase in hate crime, which is worrying, and I would hope that could potentially be down to encouraging more people to report it. We have been working hard with that. We've had 110 hate crimes this year compared to 96 last year. It's not a large increase, but like I say, I'm hoping that's because we've encouraged people to report it. Sex offences, we've seen a large increase in those, and we've had 49 this year rather than the 23 that we had the year before. So that's 113% increase. That will include sexual offences of a domestic nature. They're not all just where it's stranger attacks or anything. And I would say that's down to the fact that more people are out and about. We're getting back up to the more normal numbers that we've had before lockdown. More people are going out and about, more people are having drinks and mixing. And so we're going to get more offences like that. We will be concentrating on that. And we've got various operations in town where we will focus on areas that have had sort of large reporting of public order or disorder, or reports from people that, you know, maybe it's been a bit of an atmosphere in the premises, and then we'll pay more attention to these premises so that they can maybe keep more of a close eye on how they do business. Robbery, we've seen an increase in these, but again, it's not too worrying. Business robbery, we had 1 and there were none the year before. And personal robbery, we've had 4 and there was 3 the year before. So they're not huge numbers for the rural, considering the size of the area. Residential burglary has shown a 55% increase, and this is the one that most people will show some concern of. Burglary is a particularly horrible crime when someone comes into your home. We had 31 this year and 20 last year, so still not huge numbers compared to what they would be for the whole of Hertfordshire or some larger towns. But we definitely want to focus on that, and that's why we've kept it as one of our priorities. We'll be working with trying to get more people on OWL so that they can take advantage of our crime prevention advice and find out where different burglaries have been. We'll also be doing street meets because we can come back out and about now. So we'll be going around different areas and we'll be going to areas that we feel may be a little bit vulnerable. So we'll be checking again areas where it looks like people aren't home. These are definitely vulnerable areas when people have gone out to work and the house is in darkness. So we'll be giving advice that way as well. Drug offences have shown an increase. I'd like to think this is because we had that as a bit of a focus, because we've had areas particularly like Offaly, for example, where we've had a lot of people report to us that there've been drug deals that have been going on down the streets, things. It's very hard for us to get there in time to do anything about that. So we increase our patrols, and then the increase that we get in the drug offences are the people that we do manage to catch. It's not many, it's 26 compared to 20 the year before, but we will keep focusing on that as well. And then theft of motor vehicle has gone up by 33%. It's still only 24 offences compared to 18 the year before. This is with keyless theft. there's been a big thing where people can clone the key, if you like, by getting the signal that comes from the key, and then they can use that to then get into the vehicle and start it and leave with it. So we're doing a big thing to try and encourage people to get Faraday bags, keep the keys in so that the signals can't be cloned. So hopefully we will get more people doing that, and we can see a decrease in that, fingers crossed, next year. I would say a lot of the increases will be expected due to lockdown. We have more people out and about, more people going to pubs and clubs, and more people consuming alcohol and then getting themselves into difficulty. For us, it's back to business as normal to try and educate people to look after themselves when they're out and about. Residential burglary, like I say, we predicted that we would get more, so we're trying to concentrate on that to drive that back down again. But it's still only coming up to figures that we would expect the level to be at pre-COVID. It doesn't include fraud or online fraud in our figures. And so the overall crimes for Hertfordshire don't include the frauds. This is probably because it's dealt with in the main by action fraud. Online fraud will be reported through to them, and it doesn't necessarily come through to the boots on the ground like myself. We will get some of the investigation if there are local inquiries to be had, but a lot of the crimes come from abroad. There's one I was looking at today, and that looked like it had come from America, but when we got our cyber unit to look into it, it actually come from China, and they managed to bounce it through America. So it's still not really anything that we could deal with here in Hertfordshire. So we have got a cyber and serious crime unit that's been set up. And one of my team, who's based over in Royston, is a cyber Spock. So he's into anything cyber as a bit of a hobby. And so we do have some local skills if things do get reported through to us, but they tend to be investigated elsewhere, just simply because we won't have anything that we can achieve with it on a local level. There may be some people that have gone to fraud and online fraud from other forms of crime because they think it's easier. That's not for me to guess at. In my experience, our usual criminals are committing the usual crimes still. And then the cyber criminals are a new generation, or tend to be, from different countries, but we will keep looking into them and do what we can. The best thing that we can have is just people being our eyes and ears and reporting stuff through to us. We always need that. And there are several ways of reporting that through to us. You can ring us up, obviously, do it online. And then we have our Echo link, so people can report through to us anonymously if they want. Clearly, if it's a crime or it's antisocial behaviour, please don't use the Echo link. But if it's something that doesn't need an urgent response and it's just to let us know, then the Echo link is the best. And that is bit.ly, so it's bit.ly/police-Hitchin Rural. If you put that in, you'll get a free text box, and you can report absolutely anything through to us at all. It's all anonymous. It tends to be speeding, or there's kids gathering in the park again, and just some information that will be really useful for us to have, but it doesn't need someone to sit online for hours on end to try and get through to someone and record all the details and give their details. It's literally just a nice punchy way of saying, this is what I think you should be looking at. And we use that to set our priorities as well. We'll have a week period where we invite people to specifically send in and say, this is what I want the police to be looking at. And then we put them all together, and that's how we've come up with fly tipping, burglary and speeding. It's the ones that most people will want us to focus on out of the people that contact us. We're in a good place, I think, North Herts, particularly the rural. We seem to be doing well. We haven't been affected by some of the things that we have done over previous years. I like to think that's because we're working in conjunction with our colleagues in Bedfordshire. We're working in conjunction with the council enforcers, and also with our rural operational team as well. We're doing a lot of work, and it seems to be having an effect. So I thank you for your time. Any questions, if I'm allowed to ask that?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I think, as expected, fly tipping came up. Obviously, being an elected member for a rural ward, even last night, I lost count of how many times fly tipping was mentioned in a parish council meeting. One question that was posed to me last night to put towards you is that you mentioned Offaly, and the fact that there is a lot of drug dealing in the village, and I can fully appreciate that it's hard to catch, because unless you're there at that exact time, you can't see something that isn't there when you get there. They're asking why there isn't more of a presence on the ground around the village, around Cockenoe as well, and asking if that is something that could be looked into, to have more of a police presence, because they don't feel that they see enough men or women in uniform or marked cars in the area.
I guess it doesn't help that from my team, I'm a PC down and then I'm a PCSO down, and I've only got 2 PCSOs. And so when Heather's back and able to go out and about again, you will certainly see her presence in the village more. But just because you don't see police officers doesn't mean to say there aren't any there. We do have our Scorpion team who are plainclothes most of the time and have got an unmarked car. They are focusing on places like Offaly because their bread and butter is dealing with people for drug offences. So it doesn't mean to say that they're not there just because they're not seen. We also have our county roamers, so the dog unit and traffic vehicles that will pass through as well when they notice that it's an issue that we're looking at. It's certainly something that if it is flagged to us for the next time that we look at priorities, we can put it back as a priority. It didn't come up in any great numbers when we did the campaign this time in January, which I was surprised about. But it may be that lockdown's lifted a bit more and we've got more people out and about, and it's starting to raise its head again. I'll certainly bring it to the attention of my team when I get back and say that we need to make sure that we keep the patrols up for Offaly.
Thank you. And I will pass that link on to them to say, if there's anything that is a non-emergency, to report it to you, so that when you are setting your priorities, it will be flagged up.
We will say when we're going to be doing the review and when is the best time to put it. Obviously, the link's there all the time, 24 hours a day, but it's specifically during a week-long period that we count the numbers of sort of votes, if you like, for everything. It goes through a special computer program that will then pull out the words of interest and the priority of the different words.
Do you have any idea how regularly you do that week-long review? You said you did it in January, did you just say?
Yeah, that's before each time we look to set the priorities.
So it'll be in
then we will do that
time.
before. So yeah, that will be, we'll probably put one out just to get a flavour of what people think, probably next month, just to, find out what people are thinking now and if they're happy that we keep these priorities.
Last question from me, in terms of getting to that message to parish councils and community groups, how do you portray that? How do you get that date, that week across to them? Because it's great to know that you're reviewing it and it's a really good tool. But if they don't see that message of the date of that week, obviously they can miss it. Is it put on Facebook? Is it sent to the ward members? Is it sent to the parish councils directly?
All of the above, I'm told.
Okay.
I don't do Facebook or Twitter personally, but we send it through to our corporate comms, and they've got a set pattern that they follow.
Mm-hmm.
And during the week, they publicise it even more, and they put things out on Twitter and Facebook to try and encourage people to enter into it as well. And also, anyone who's an OWL member will get a short OWL survey, basically saying what areas do you want us to concentrate on. And I think there's a free text box on that, if I'm not mistaken. So we put it out there where we can.
Perfect.
We'll certainly make sure that next time there is one, we'll send it through to the councillors as well, so that you're aware.
we obviously cover the areas every month. So if it's able to be sent out a month in advance, if you're thinking of doing it next month, if it's sent before the end of the previous month, we can obviously make people aware. But that's absolutely fine.
Whenever you have your meetings as well, if you particularly want to utilize it and say, you know, we've had our meeting, if everyone could send through now and then just let us know, and we will look out for a spike in things coming through after your meeting, and then we can let you know what results we got back from that.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor North.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sergeant Westwood, for your presentation. Chair, I've got 3 questions, so would you prefer me to take them one by one or all in one block? Do you have a pen and paper? You do. So the first question is relating to the fly tipping question. Again, the statistics in North Hertfordshire show that the Hitchwood, Offa and Hoo area has a much higher level of fly tipping than anywhere else in North Hertfordshire. And I wanted to know what work Hertfordshire Constabulary and sort of your team are doing with Bedfordshire Constabulary to make sure there's some joint working there with potentially people coming over from Luton and dumping their rubbish in our lanes. The second question that I wanted to ask related to the data collection for your priorities and your priority setting forums. As you're moving to a 6-month sort of management of how you bring those public views into your priority setting, what data sources do you use to infer your priorities? I think it's obviously important that people have the right to raise their concerns about what they perceive is the issue in their area, but data doesn't necessarily always go along with what those perceptions of crime are, and also how is the threat harm sort of taken into account. So for instance, one of the concerns that I have is some of our local farmers and rural workers have some very, very expensive equipment, and the threat to them from people attempting to steal those machinery is much higher than some of the other crimes that are sometimes reported. And my final question, Chair and Sergeant Westwood, is as of May 2020, the Police and Crime Commissioner will have increased his precept by £20 for the Band D property in Hertfordshire. I just wanted to know how that translated in terms of increase in numbers of officers in your team covering the area that you do.
Thank you. If I answer that last one first, because I think it's going to be the shortest answer, I don't really know. I have no say in what the officer figures are. I just know that my team has been protected and I haven't got any less officers. Over the last, I think, 5 years, the numbers have stayed the same, and that was a promise, I think, that the Police and Crime Commissioner made. We have had issues with sickness, with COVID, but we haven't seen any decrease in our officer numbers. And so once I've got everyone back, then I will have the full team I've always had. And we do get Police Now students that will be gifted, shall we say, to the neighbourhood team for the 2 years that they first arrive. And they have various projects where they can focus on major issues in our area. And we also have a load of new students that are coming through, in their first 5 weeks and then onwards, they will have other periods of time that they come back and join us. They will spend with us. So at the moment, we've got 2 students for Hitchin, and one of them has been spending their time with Claire Wallace, who's one of my rural officers. So I have an increase there, albeit they're brand new, they're very keen and want to achieve. And also we're always looking to recruit specials. And I've got 2 very, very good rural specials that come in, and they will only come to me to see what needs to be done, and they will look just for rural issues, and they'll stay out of the town altogether. It's nothing to do with the budget, I'm afraid. I have no say over that and where the people go, but I'm well aware that we need to keep people out in the rural areas. There's still going to be an underreporting of crimes, and the powers that be will still tend to send the people where the crime is, or where they know it is, and that will be whatever's reported. So it's a case of encouraging people to report the crime, and then that is going to make sure that we keep our numbers. Fly tipping and Luton, we do liaise with our Bedfordshire counterparts, but if it's a problem to us, it's not a problem to them, and it's very hard to get them to buy into something that isn't causing them a problem. And that's being brutally frank with it, really. Also, a lot of it will come from the town centre itself, and it's coming into the rural. And so their rural officers will have similar problems as us. We try and get a buy-in as much as we can, and we do liaise with them. There's all sorts of problems that are beyond our realm, shall we say, to be able to work with. Some people say, why do they still charge to take the rubbish to the tip? You can't subsidise the tips, and even if you did, people wouldn't necessarily have waste carriers licenses, and then you've just given them a free-for-all to have more people trying to become waste carriers without a license. So there's all sorts of things that's more political than we can get involved with, but we can do what we can to try and stop it. And we do liaise, like I say, with beds. There's a bit of work going on at the moment with regards to cannabis factories and fly tips from them, where it was thought from, I think it's the Midlands area, that maybe some of the rubbish from the cannabis factories was actually being dumped by the landlords, so that once we've finished with the cannabis factory, they've got all this rubbish left and they'd be left to pay for it. And so potentially it's the landlords that have been dumping some of the rubbish. I'm not so sure in this area, but the thinking being that as soon as we finish with the cannabis factory, we can use smart water or selected DNA to mark some of the rubbish. And then if it turns up out in our area, we would know where it had come from. It's certainly a thought that we can look into and trial, and then we'd find out if more of it was coming out of Luton, I guess. But then we'd need to get the buy-in for Luton police to be using the selected DNA or smart water in the first place. And then data collection. It is the OWL survey and the Echo link information that comes in that we've used, and then we would normally have a councillors meeting. I think there was a bit of an email problem, and none of the emails went through this time last year, because that was set up, I think it was December before Christmas. And by the time we realised that the emails hadn't worked in order to get the councillor meeting set up, I ended up getting COVID, and so we took the councillor part out of it because we just wanted to be able to get the new priorities set up rather than stalling it. We also do have meetings with the farmers. We used to set them up through the NFU. They would set up any meetings with the farmers because they would have an email list of interested parties, and then they'd all get invited along. And we have barn meets as well. They haven't been happening because of COVID lately, but we'll be looking at a new way of trying to do it. Just because they're farmers, we don't have to go and stand in a cold barn. We could try it another way. So we will be reaching out soon to try and make sure that we get the farmers' views. But we do try and bring them in on the process as much as we can. I hope that's answered some of your questions.
Thank you, Sergeant Westwood. Yeah, I can absolutely back you with the farmers. Obviously, being married to a farmer myself, we've got very close links with the agricultural community. Agricultural crime that I'm aware of hasn't been as high as it was pre-COVID. We had all sorts being set on fire and being stolen. The barn meets are always well attended, and Councillor North, if you needed details of those, you'd be more than welcome to come and join us. Moving on, Councillor Strong. Strong's the next one on the list to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quickie question on the speeding one, and certainly the three priorities, fly tipping, burglary and speeding. Certainly all the village parish councils that I go to and listen in on, those are definitely the major three things that people are bringing up time and time again. And on the speeding, now it's the speed camera van, that lovely little machine, which I regularly see on the Bedford Road going out of Hitchin, seems to pop up there a couple of every 2 or 3 months. I have to think it resides on there, taking down the number plates. But I've never really seen that little van anywhere out in the rural areas. And I just wondered, do you know where, do you know how often it comes out and is stuck somewhere in a rural area? And if it is, how effective is it in actually catching those people that are running and doing excessive speeds through the villages?
The camera van that you refer to on Bedford Road is a different one to the PCC's camera van. The one that's on Bedford Road is governed by killed or seriously injured statistics, and so that is can only go to KSI sites. So on Bedford Road, at some point, that must go way back, there must have been several incidents to warrant it, because it's got a hard standing and everything that's sort of put within the grass at that location. And so there are set locations that those camera vans will go to and can go to, and there's legislation that says where we can and can't use them, and we can't vote for those. Now the PCC's camera van, this uses different technology in it. This will use the handheld laser device that we will use. They just point it out of the window of the van, and then they use that the same way that our PCSOs or the drive safe works. And so it will generate a letter that is sent out from the PCC's office if someone's seen to be speeding, warning them that they've been seen speeding at this certain location. If they're seen a second time, it will do a second letter. And I think it's the third time, if they're seen speeding, then one of my team will go around, knock on their door and hand deliver the letter, and give them a little bit of a guilt trip and see if that can't educate them into slowing down. And it does work actually quite well. The time between getting your first letter and the third letter, you'll be thinking about it, and then people's speeds do generally slow down. The technology in the actual camera van that goes to the KSI sites, that's like the static cameras that you see that will all automatically read and work it all out. They will then work out the data when they get back, and that will generate tickets and driver re-education courses and things. The one that we can utilize is the PCC's van, and so we can book it and say we'd like some attention here, and then all we have to do is let them know the areas. So if you've got areas that you think that it would be good use of its time, please send them through, and then I can get this through to them, and then we can start booking them.
I think Claire and I are on the same wavelength here. At the Offaly meeting last night, they said that it was outside the Flint cottages, just outside of Offaly. Just repeating Claire's question, and it was something that was brought up by one of the residents yesterday. They were so thankful to have it quickly within the month of reporting speeding to us. They've got camera signs up and they've had the PCC vehicle out, but they wanted to know how regularly they were allowed to have it in the area.
It will be as regularly as they get things sent through to them. They've got time slots that they have to fill, and they will have to be fair to the area. But if we send through regularly that these are the slots that we want, then we will get a slot each time. I can't say any more than that, really. If they start getting hundreds and hundreds of people wanting them, then it will be less at each location.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. That's great. Councillor Sam North, if we can keep this one short, because I'm very aware that we've obviously been taking a lot of time on this one, please.
Yeah, that's fine, Chair. I just wanted to say thank you very much, Sergeant Westford, for all that you do and all that you've done over the pandemic. It's clearly not been very easy. And I just wanted to come back very, very briefly on the evidence and the data that you use, and just say that with the push that has been made by the Police Crime Commissioner on the prevention first approach, obviously I'm saddened that the neighbourhood team, who are at the forefront of preventing crime, are not seeing an increase in officers, or have not over the last few years. But just wanted to see how the prevention first approach has been integrated into your day-to-day work.
It is it's seeping in everything that we do. We're looking at just simple ways of trying to save time as part of the prevention first approach. One of my team, Johnny Streeter, who used to be Offer and Who PC, has joined the prevention first team. And so he came into the office the other day and said he'd been in custody, just coming up with a new ringtone for officers that have made arrests. Because the same way that if you've ever tried to call headquarters on 101, you'll be stuck for quite some time trying to get through the system to get your call in. Custody has got the same sort of system that is relatives, solicitors, officers, general inquiries, all trying to go through the same phone number. And so he's come up with a simple solution that you come up with a separate ringtone, and then those officers can save themselves half an hour of trying to get through the system to get their call through to find out if there's any space at custody. So it's getting there for simple things like that, trying to change some of the forms that we have and the processes so that we can get officers back out on the street. So it's there, and it's gathering momentum in the background, and it is coming through. The way that we're encouraged to try and problem solve is certainly with a prevention first approach, that it's not just the police and we have to deal with this and then the council deal with these things. We're all in it together, trying to improve the lives of everyone. And so that's sort of the main philosophy with it. It's you want to prevent something from happening rather than just deal with it once it's happened. To do that, then you need the buy-in of loads of partners rather than just us.
Thank you. I have Councillor Tandy and George Davies to bring this to a close. So Councillor Tandy.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you, Sergeant Westwood, for that presentation. I've just got one question. Have you got any crime figures for Nebworth Ward, please?
I haven't done individual wards because even without questions, then I would have still been here now trying to go through all the different wards. I can, if you would like, to come to me outside of the meeting when I'm next back at work. I can find the figures for you.
Mail them to me, please. That would
Yes,
be very
of
helpful.
course.
Thank you.
Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Chair. It might be a slight aside, but you mentioned briefly cannabis factories a few minutes ago. And whenever that subject comes up, I'm put in mind of the sort of anecdotal, oh yes, you can spot them because they're the houses that all the snow melts off the roof immediately, and things like that. And as you're here, I thought I'd ask, obviously I don't know if you can say anything on this or not, but is reporting that sort of anecdotal telltale sign actually of any interest to the police? And if so, what sort of things should we or should we not bother reporting?
Yeah, interesting question. It's always worth reporting it to us. It may just be that they haven't insulated their loft, but it could tend to come with curtains never being opened, heavy condensation, they've got plastic up at the windows, lots of coming and going at sort of strange times, bags being taken in and out, maybe the sound of extractor fans a lot of the time. If you've got all of those things, it's a definite please call us. But there's absolutely no harm in saying, you know, if this house, everyone else, it's mid-terraced, everyone else has still got snow and this one's gone, and you never see people there, or you don't actually know who it is, it's always worth calling it through to us. Sometimes we can get the helicopter to do a flyover with the thermal imaging, or the fire brigade have got thermoscopes now that we can use to try and get some sort of idea. So it gives us a heads up that there might be an issue. So it's always worth calling it in.
I'm fully aware we've taken up a lot of your time this evening, but thank you. Thank you for coming and answering our questions. It's always invaluable to have your input to these meetings. And I just want to place it on record my personal thanks, because I know outside of the meeting, we've had some liaison with work in and around the area, and you and your team are always very quick to respond, well trained, and are helpful to residents across our ward and across Southern Rural. So thank you for your continued help and your hard work. Do feel free to stay and listen to everything else. If not, go and have a late supper. Yes, go and continue your hard work. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 6, public participation. We're going to take the verbal presentations, beginning with Coddigate Tennis Club, with Maxine Sanders here to present. Oh, Councillor Moody.
Yeah, just to make sure, I may have an interest in this because I'm a member of the same club, or not the tennis club, but the John Clements, which I think most of the tennis club are members of as well. So I won't take any part in it.
Okay, where do we stand?
That means that Councillor Moody can't vote.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for making us aware. Thank you. If you'd like to give your presentation.
Yes, thank you very much. Or good evening to you all, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present in person this evening. Since we submitted our grant application, I have had some feedback from the low carbon workspace grant that we put on our application. Sadly, they declined. They were unable to support us because we didn't meet the CO2 savings and thresholds of the European Regional Development Fund guidelines. Well, this was a huge disappointment to us because I'd received quite encouraging comments during my many conversations with them. So that avenue is no longer available to us. In addition, we had applied to the Coddigate Parish Council, and they've been unable to support us as there's no current budget available. We intend to apply again post-April when the new budget comes in. But again, looking at their budgets from their council meeting, there does appear to be limited availability for recreational activities. Since then, I've also applied to the Luton Airport Community Fund for a grant. This is still in early stages, and we await a decision for that in April. And again, due to COVID, we've had limited ability to run fund raising with members' activities to get some more internal funds. So that's just a little bit of background about what we have been doing since I put this application to you. By way of background on the project, we hadn't expected to upgrade our LED floodlights so soon. We had prudently retained £10,000 in our sinking fund after we did our major court resurfacing in 2020. With a view to building up those reserves over the next 3 or 4 years to upgrade the floodlights. However, we've now found that the component parts of the existing halogen lights are becoming obsolete, and our annual maintenance contract is going to be significantly increased in June this year. And therefore, we don't consider it prudent to continue with the current lights because they're getting very old. The maintenance contract is going to be getting very expensive. We've had a number of failures on the lights which have had to be repaired. So the cost of the project, £21,012 inclusive of VAT, which includes a discount saving of £1,000, as we won't need to complete, or this is if we do it in time, we won't need to complete a full service in June, which is already paid for under the current maintenance contract. So the contractor would give us £1,000 back towards that cost. So that would be very helpful. But most important, the LED lights are more environmentally friendly, cheaper to operate, about 60% cheaper than current electricity costs, and they don't require an ongoing maintenance cost for the club. So therefore, we feel that this project is both imperative and timely for the club. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions from members? Councillor North.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. I just, considering the figures that you've just given to us about grants that are not yet available, my first question is, how much of the £21,012 do you still need to fundraise for? And secondly, could you just tell me a little bit more about the usage of the court during the darker hours? Obviously, the days are extending now, and I appreciate that the cost of the project will increase after June. But with the longer days until sort of the autumn time, what is the usage of the courts when the floodlights need to be used?
Okay, so in terms of the funding, we've got £10,000 of our own money, and we've had £1,000. Actually, I forgot to mention that we had £1,000 from Richard Sake's locality budget. So we're now that's the difference, that we're short effectively £9,000, yeah, and various grant applications, including this one. In terms of the use of the floodlights, yeah, we use the floodlights, I mean, all year. We've had these existing floodlights for 15 years, and they are extensively used through the winter. And as you say, that actually, as we get in to the summer months, we don't use them as much. We run a summer league, the Dactyl Summer League, from April to September. We tend to put the lights on probably the last hour, maybe an hour and a half of that league. We can only use the floodlights up to 10 o'clock at night, but we use them all year round, but obviously more importantly through the winter and autumn months. They're extensively used. And we couldn't operate the same facilities for our members if we didn't have floodlights. Does that answer the question? Sorry if I've not talked in numbers of hours.
I'm just waiting. Yeah, it definitely does. So thank you very much for that. I suppose my follow-up question to the £9,000 that's left over is, in terms of your organisation or the club or the, do you have sort of reserve funding or alternative funding that could make up that difference? And if you did make up the difference, where would that come from, and where would that leave you as a club?
Well, we're looking for we're trying to raise the £9,000 through grant funding, like yourselves, like the Luton Airport Authority. We've been to the LTA. That we can't get anything from them. We had a £5,000 loan that we've got £4,000 left to repay for the refurbishment of the court in 2020. I have looked at the community funds, which is for the like Tom McLafarge and various others. But they've changed their criteria, and we don't come in within their mileage allowance. So we can't do any of those funds now. We have used those in the past. So I've looked at loads of different funding avenues, and these seems to be the only ones that are really left to us. So I guess if we don't raise the funds, we won't be able to do the project, because we've put some money in the sinking fund, and we've put some extra money in as a surplus this year. So yes, we'll just have to wait until we can do some more fundraising. Thank you.
You mentioned that you've gone to the Luton Airport Community Fund. How much did you apply for from them?
And into that to replace the one from the workspace, carbon workspace loan that was declined.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Strong.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, I think again with all the Thomas Clement Centre, and I remember the tennis club courts when you came before, because I remember that we kind of supported then, and it was certainly Councillor Graham James very good at getting monies and stuff for your club and that. the only thing I was just trying to think of, because it's a large sum of money that you're looking for, and you've probably seen in terms of the grant, as a committee, we only have about 8,000 a year.
I can see that, yes.
Yeah, and we've spent most of the grant money anyway, a good portion of it already. And it's just trying to understand what other grant funding streams you could look at. And I did, my usual one, I always ask this one, is whether there was Section 106 funding that was left over in any of the CODICA, if we looked at that. But that, or going forward, knowing that there might be development in the village, you never know, but whether or not some of it might be earmarked, again, that is a way of offsetting to the community grant money that goes into the community to enhance, improve, extend facilities if there's any building going along. That would be, to me, about the only thought I could have of where you could find substantial sums of money, and not because it's a lot of money you're looking for.
Yes, I was disappointed.
Could you turn your microphone on? Sorry.
Oh, I'm so
it's on now.
oh,
There you go.
Yes, I was disappointed that we couldn't actually get any further support from Codicott Parish Council. And I think looking at their budget, I think they've put a small amount, I think up to £5,000 to cover all of recreation for the whole of the village for next year. So I'm not thinking we'll be able to get much support from them going forward. And they've spent the budget from last year, so there's nothing left.
Okay, are there any final questions from members? No? Thank you very much. We will be listening to the rest of the presentations and then debating it later on. Feel free to listen to the debate. Okay, moving on. We then have Elaine Derrick and Alison Maple from Preston Joy Care joining us.
Good evening to you. Thank you for inviting us to submit our reasons as to why Joy Care may be considered for a grant. Joy Care came into being as a result of a legacy left to the older people of Preston. It received charitable status, but was thought that it would last perhaps 3 or 4 years. Over 20 years later, and still going strong, Joy Care is a much valued and appreciated part of Preston village life. We arrange lunches at local pubs, subsidised by Joy Care, monthly shopping trips, occasional outings, and facilitate a chiropody clinic. Our Good Neighbours scheme volunteers, amongst other things, take people to mainly medical appointments, collect prescriptions, and do shopping. And I'll hand you now over to Elaine.
Hello. Joy Care are hosting a Platinum Jubilee afternoon tea party on Thursday, the 2nd of June. This event is for Preston's elderly community. When I say elderly, it's really for residents in Preston who are aged over 60 and going up to their late 90s. And we estimate there are over 200 residents in that sort of category in the village. The Jubilee is an occasion for celebration and one that most people are looking forward to. But importantly, the tea party provides an opportunity for our elderly community to come together, reconcile old friendships and build new ones, lift spirits, and for them to have some fun. And the Jubilee comes at a time following 2 years of COVID and the impact of which has been felt by many, particularly the elderly community who have felt vulnerable, isolated, and perhaps have lost confidence in some of their independence due to some of the restrictions that have been in place. So our afternoon tea party will provide an opportunity in a safe environment for them to celebrate together some of the great achievements over the last 70 years. The tea party will also provide an opportunity for them to make new friendships and identify with new support avenues for help them combat loneliness, rebuild their confidence in socialising and hopefully enhance their general well-being. So the event itself, well, it's going to be a traditional afternoon tea party that the Ritz Hotel would be proud to serve. We've got a local resident who is an absolute whiz. It's a Jubilee theme, so there'll be all red, white and blue bunting, decorations, balloons, etc. We're hoping to have some entertainment, so a fun Jubilee themed quiz, and perhaps some music, whether that's a singer and a guitarist or pianist, to create just a sense of fun, a sing along, little bit of dancing maybe. Joy Care do hold an annual afternoon tea, but on a much smaller scale. We held one last year where there were 35 residents present, and the feedback was absolutely amazing. They really appreciated the event and just the companionship that it brought to them. The reason we're applying for funding for the Jubilee Tea Party is that we really want to reach out to the sort of 200 plus elderly residents in the community and make it a much bigger event. So we're including more people. So the benefits, so of course it's an event where our elderly community can come together, meet others and have fun. But there are much more longer term benefits, we hope, than a one-off event. We hope we can lift the spirits of those who attend, help them reconnect with some of their community who they've lost contact with over the last couple of years, help them build new friendships and support structures, and enhance the well-being and resilience of our elderly community so they can continue to thrive and be valued members of our society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor North.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to know how you reached out to the elderly community in Preston to invite them along.
Yes, how we will. So we will do it through a variety of means. We have an email distribution list of current members of Joy Care. We have a Preston Village magazine. We have a Preston Village Facebook page. We have community notice boards where we can put up posters. We have the village shop where there's a notice board. So through various means and at different events, we'll just start to push out the news of the event. So try to reach as wide as possible.
Sounds fantastic and a great way to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor North. Are there any other questions? No? Again, thank you for your presentation. We'll be debating it after all the presentations have been given, so please feel free to stay and listen if you wish to. Okay, we've got lots of Preston residents here tonight. So next we have Peter Johnson here from Preston Players. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you, councillors, for inviting me along to put my pictures were for our grant application. Preston Players is an amateur dramatic group in Preston, obviously. We were formed about 25 years ago, and we put on plays and musicals, at least 2 a year. Our next show, in fact, is the end of this month, Sweet Charity. If you want tickets, you can go online, you can find them if you Google Preston Players. Anyway, but this proposal, excuse me, is to do with our lighting system. It's in two parts. Firstly, there's the lighting control desk, which is as it says, it's a unit about sort of 2 foot by 1 foot, which sits normally at the back of a hall with the operator, and he or she then can control the lights. Well, unfortunately, our last lighting desk, which is pretty old, it failed before our last show, and fortunately, we managed to borrow one to keep us going. So that's our first part of the proposal, which actually is half the cost, £1,500. And excuse me, the advantage of the new lighting desk, apart from the fact it means it replaces the old one, is that they have a lot more facilities than the old one had. And one of the things it can do is control LED lighting. And as the lady down there said, LED lights have a lot of advantages over the traditional incandescent lights. They take less power, but more importantly, they're much more versatile. A normal light is just white, or else you can put a colour thing in front of it to change the colour, but you can't do that during a play. But an LED light has a number of different colour LEDs, red, green and blue LEDs, and depending on how much power you put into each of those colours, then you can get any colour you like. So you can change the colour of a light during a show. Which means you don't need quite as many lights as before. And secondly, we're looking at ones which you can actually move the position of them. They have a motor, and you probably see these sort of things on sort of Strictly Come Dancing. They're what I call the top end range of things, where we're going to look at the very much at the bottom end of equipment. But it means they can move around the stage while the show is going on. So that's really what we're trying to do, is upgrade our lighting. And it'll be done in sort of a number of stages, but this is our sort of first stage of what we're going to try and do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? Councillor Strong.
Yeah, just going to ask, you said the board.
Yeah.
What was the cost of that?
That's 1,500.
That's about 1,500.
Yeah. And we are, I should have said, if you look at the proposal, we are match funding. So in fact, we're asking, the whole thing is 3,000. So the board is 1,500 and the lights are 1,500. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But it's the board that's the critical thing to get. Yeah.
We've got the money for that to pay for that anyway. You see what I mean? Because we're going to.
Yeah, I get. Yeah.
But you're spot on. That is a critical thing. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. No.
One question I have you approached your county councillor or Luton Airport Community Fund or any other funding sources to gain the money for the new lights?
Well, yes, we did actually. About 2 years ago, Councillor Barnard tried to put an application for us. I can't remember. I wasn't actually involved in the application. I knew about it, but I'm not quite certain where he's going to get the money from. But unfortunately, it's pre-COVID and it failed.
Okay, I know a lot of the locality budgets obviously coming to the end of the civic year have run out, but it's obviously going into the new year could be something to explore. But thank you very much. Again, we'll be debating this after the presentations. Now, the last presentation from Preston Parish Council, they actually have their Parish Council meeting tonight and have some fairly contentious issues they have to discuss. So their clerk, Lisa Lethane, has submitted a written presentation that I believe Claire is going to read to us.
Thank you, Chair. Right, this is from Lisa Lethane. On behalf of Preston Parish Council, I would like to apologise most sincerely for not being present this evening and for asking Claire to read this report to the committee. We have a Parish Council meeting this evening when we have a number of important issues to discuss, and I really need all the parish councillors to be present. I hope that the district councillors on this committee, especially our ward councillors, Councillor David Barnard, Faye Frost and Claire Strong, will understand this and realise that we have to prioritise. Our application is for a grant of £526.80 to purchase a new cabinet for our defibrillator. The defibrillator is housed in a cabinet in the Red Lion pub car park, so it is always available if it is required. The cabinet is now starting to come to the end of its life and needs replacing. The cabinet needs to be on an electrical circuit to keep it warm in winter so that the defibrillator continues to work. The defibrillator is a vital resource for an emergency because of the rural nature of Preston and the distance and time required for the ambulances to reach the village. The cabinet is locked to prevent vandalism and unauthorised use. The code is given by the ambulance service if the defibrillator is required in an emergency situation. The Parish Council funds the replacement pads every 2 years or more often should the defibrillator be used. The Parish Council will pay for the installation of the new cabinet by an electrician as matched fund if this application is granted. Approximately 400 people live in the parish at present, although this number will increase as the result of new houses being built in the village. Preston has a lot of visitors for walks and cycling, so the number of people who could potentially benefit from the defibrillator if they needed it will far exceed the number of local residents. The defibrillator is a key piece of life-saving equipment in a rural environment which can be used while waiting for an ambulance to arrive. A cabinet in good condition is required to ensure that the defibrillator is always in working order. We hope the committee will look favourably on our request and that our application will be granted.
Thank you, Claire. It'll be very difficult to ask any questions, but Claire may be able to answer them. So members, are there any questions? No. Thank you for your presentation. Okay. Moving on to item number 7, grants and community update. Again, over to Claire to present.
If we go back to the Cotticott Tennis Club, I just had to correct a mistake in the written report that it was stated in the report that they'd received £8,000 throughout 2015-16, and that should have been 2,000. When we looked back through the grant history, went a bit boss-eyed and looked at the wrong column. So they requested 5,000 in 2015. They'd been given 500 and then they got a further 1,500. So that's where that mistake was made. So they haven't had as much funding over the past few years as it says in the report. But the last funding they had was the 3,500 towards the artificial turf that was awarded this time 2 years ago. In terms of Section 106 funding, you may recall the last time Simon Ellis was here, the planning manager, he did say there was very little 106 available across Southern Rural. We did try to get a bit for Offley and the parish council had already had it. So I can ask Simon and his colleague Steph Blunt if there is anything in Cotticott, but I don't think there is anything of. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I think it is highly unlikely. So if members want to go to the recommendation for that one, and unless anyone's got any other questions, or do you want to hear them all, go through them all, and then
if we can go through them all, because I think I think we're going to take them on block in a slightly different order of debate tonight. So if we can hear them on block, that would be great.
The other relevant consideration is that there isn't enough budget in the, or enough funds within the budget to provide all the grants as have been requested this evening. So there's going to have to be a bit of cutting the cloth to fit the, what I can't remember what, yes, that, that analogy. So the next one is Purton Joy Care and their tea party. They're requesting 750. They want to spend 1,500 on the most amazing experience for the older members of the community in Purton. And they've already raised 750 towards it from donations from the community and fundraising events. So they're asking for 750 from the committee towards this event. And as you just heard, the Purton players need new lights and a new control desk. So they've raised 1,500 towards the lights, and what they're asking is for the 1,500 towards the lighting desk. Or the other way around, one or the other. Right, and you want money for the lights. Okay. And then finally, the Preston Parish Council. This is a defibrillator that's been in place for a while, but the cabinet now needs replacing, and they're requesting £526.80 to replace that cabinet, which I think is pretty straightforward, really.
Thank you, Claire. I'm going to take the debate tonight in a slightly different order to the presentations. I'm going to take the Preston Parish Council application for the defibrillator housing first. It seems a fairly straightforward one, so I open the floor for this one to debate. Councillor North.
Thank you, Chair. Could I ask you, Chair, if we could consider all of these on block? The reason why I suggest that is because as a committee, we are fairly unfortunate that this is the last committee of the year, and therefore our funds are limited to £2,999. And the sum of all of these grants come to 7,000 something. And so we're not going to be able to do that. In terms of if that is not the case, my position would be that we accept the Preston Parish Council funding in full, Purton Players funding in full, Purton Joy Care in full, and we defer the Collicott Tennis Club until the first meeting of the next financial year when we have more funds.
Thank you, Councillor North. Councillor Strong, I can see that you've requested to speak.
Yes. One thing I was wondering was whether Councillor Barnard had any of his locality budget left, but he hasn't. No, I did text him and he hasn't come back to me, so I guess that was a no.
I can fill that one in. He gave his last £279, I believe, to Kingswood Parish Council on Monday night.
That was very generous of him. Yeah, I mean, we are faced with an issue where we have lots of grant applications and not sufficient funding for it. When I was kind of looking at it, and the idea of Councillor North had, but then I also thought of some of these and thought, you know, would we fund them in would we fund them in full? If we fund them in full, but not the Codicott one, we roll that over. Even though we roll it over, that's a substantial amount of money, even if we roll it into next year. But I think if we defer it and ask them to come back, that's one thing. But what's the net worth of the other three?
Thank you. I do know it leaves us with £222 in the budget to take over into the next.
Claire, looking at you, could you just remind councillors with this idea that Councillor North and Councillor Strong are proposing, could you just remind us of the budget for the next civic year?
Right, I think this is an assumption because obviously we don't know there's going to be any budget for the next civic year because there'll be an election, there'll be an administration comes in with no idea what that administration is going to be yet until after the election. And you never know, that administration might say we don't want to do grant budgets. So I can't say for definite, but the budget this year was 10,200. And my understanding is that's been agreed for next year by this current administration. So unless something drastic happens, we can assume it's going to be 10,200. So 5,000 would still be half the budget. So it's
I believe
quite a lot to request.
From conversations with Claire earlier this week, that actually this meeting itself was very oversubscribed and many of the applications have been rolled on to June. So there are other applications also waiting for the June meeting. So during debate, please just bear that in mind, that more applications did come forward, and should we roll it on, the £5,000 would take near on half the budget.
It to decide that then that's not making any commitment at this stage. I mean, we might look at it and there might be other ways they might have found an additional grant funding. I think it's always difficult because we don't have a huge budget and we always have very worthy causes coming forward.
Okay, we're going to have to vote on these individually because obviously Councillor Moody declared an interest in the tennis club. So if we can vote bottom to top, basically. Yes, Councillor North.
Quick point of order question. If we went through back to front and we voted yes on all of them, then we would have no budget left. So we would automatically not be able to vote for the fight. How would it work financially?
from what I've heard from the floor, I'm looking to propose to defer Codicut to the next meeting, hence why I'm saying go back to front, because we don't have the budget to give them the funds tonight, but that's not to say that we don't want to support them. What we're saying is if we can defer it and maybe look at what comes forward from Luton Airport Community Fund as well, and come back in June, once we've got those figures, we can have a look at what we have in front of us. None of us know the applications that have been deferred to June or held until June. I think that's the best way forward. Can I see if there's any other feeling, or if we're happy to suggest this going forward?
I'm happy to suggest that, Chair. I think my position would be that we vote on deferring that first and then go through the other grants.
Yeah, happy to do so. Does Councillor Moody still need to leave? Oh, Councillor Moody, sorry, but you still need to leave the room, please. Yes. I'm doing as I'm told. Okay, so can I have a proposal? I'll propose that we defer the Codicut tennis club application until June, when you have the information back from Luton Airport Community Fund, and we can look at the new civic year budget as well. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Strong. Voting is by the buttons on your speaking. Okay.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Councillor Tandy, did you vote on that one? Oh, okay.
I mean, it's been carried nonetheless.
Okay, it's carried either way. So no, that's. If we could invite Councillor Moody back to the meeting, please. Welcome back. Okay, to our second application from Preston Joy Care, open to debate. Councillor Strong.
As ward councillor, I'd be very happy to propose the amount that's requested here in this report. I've known Joy Care very many years. I know that it is, and I know before when they used to come for grants, because they're only Purton, that sometimes we weren't able to. But the fact that obviously they're here tonight, that means the rules have changed, which I actually do think is fantastic. And I do think it's such a worthy cause, and just to bring the whole of that community together. Did I hear there was an age limit as well, so that you could be reaching out to?
Over 60.
I'll be there. You invite me. Possibilities. Yeah, I'd like to propose that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies.
Yes, I'm very happy to second that. Though we might need to be slightly careful that we don't give any councillors over 60 an interest if we start talking like that.
Okay. Can we go to the vote? If there's no other comments, please go to the vote.
Chair, that motion is carried.
It's unanimous. And good luck. I hope to hear lots of good things from it. Okay, and on to our third application tonight, Purton Players. Again, open to debate. Councillor Strong.
I'm very happy to move that we award them the 1,500. I have to say again, the community in Purton has some wonderful clubs and activities, and certainly the Purton Players, they do put on some very good shows, and they have some very talented members in it. And I think it's only right if we can help them to get new lighting and help them to do the productions. Yes, I'm very happy to support.
And I will second Councillor Strong's motion there. Can we go to the vote, please? Is there anyone else wanting to speak? I've got no one requesting. Thank you.
Chair, that motion is carried.
I shall look at getting tickets to your next show with some fabulous lighting.
I was going to say, the tickets are going really well, so you better get in quick because we're nearly sold out in the last 2 nights anyway.
Perfect. I shall have a look. Thank you ever so much. And on to our last application for this evening, Preston Parish Council for the housing of the defibrillator. Obviously, Preston falls within my ward. As a parish council, they do raise a lot of their own funds. They very rarely come to the committee. The last time they came was in 2016. They obviously upkeep the defibrillator with personal experience within the family of someone who sadly died because there was no defibrillator on site that could have saved his life. I endorse anything to do with defibrillators, the upkeep of them and the installation. So I will propose this one, but open to the floor for debate. Councillor North.
Yeah, completely agree with you, Chair. Having had first-hand experience of defibrillators and their use and benefits, I will darn a ditch for any applications that request funding for defibrillators. So happy to second.
Thank you. Councillor Strong.
You got there first.
So,
Oh,
yeah, sorry.
No, it's all right.
Councillor Davies. Oh, sorry. Carry on.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen a number of applications around a lot of the parish councils who have been putting in defibrillators, and yeah, it's and you know, if there is one there that's needed, it can save a life. And if it's not there and if it's not kept up to date, it's not going to do its job. So I absolutely hope the committee will support.
Thank you. Councillor Davies.
Yeah, you've all said it already, and I just wanted to echo those comments. I think we've had plenty of offers of seconds.
Great. Let's move to the vote if there's no one else wishing to speak.
That motion has carried.
Claire, will you be informing the clerk that they have been successful?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our presenters this evening and taking the time to come and speak to us. It's lovely to see you again in person, and we look forward to all of your endeavours in the future. Okay, moving on to item number 8 now. Sorry, Claire. Sorry, carry on.
I just wanted to do a bit of the update to add to what's in the report. Next Friday, not tomorrow, Friday the 11th, we've got the Chairs Recognition Awards, Community Recognition Awards, which is taking place here in the Council Chamber. It's going to be broadcast live on YouTube, so I hope that members will think about tuning in or watching it. It will still be up on the YouTube channel to watch. But there's some really moving stories of people that have done amazing things in the community. So it's a really nice way of recognising the work that goes on in the background. 7:30. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. On to item number 8, ward matters and outside organisations. Are there any reports from members within their ward? No. No. Well, that brings the meeting to a close. That is the last of this civic year. Thank you ever so much, everyone.
Daryl, could you let us know